everyone. My name is Amanda Mahoney, and today I'm going to be presenting my population study report on the LGBTQ plus community. So this is going to be meaning anybody who's going to identify as being a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and sometimes the Q also stands for questioning. So first, I'm just going to go ahead and look at the LGBTQ plus population in the United States as a whole. Right now, we're sitting at approximately 650,000 openly gay couples. As of those 650,000 openly gay couples, 1 out of 5 are deciding to raise children. So to my excitement and my surprise, 63% of Americans approve same-sex parenting, which I think is awesome. So now for California's more specific population, the California demographics state that 5.3% of people in California identify as being in the LGBTQ plus community. And breaking that down a little bit further, it's going to be about 45% male and 51% female. I went ahead and broke down the race and ethnicity breakdown. So white is going to have the highest amount of people who identify with 48%. Then Latinx, multiracial, Asian, and then Black. And then additionally, LGBTQ plus youth are going to account for 10% of the public school system. And also, I just want to bring up again that even though it says 10% of the public school system, that's probably not accounting for the many people who probably have not come out yet or have not gotten there in their development of their sexual orientation yet. So regionally broken down in California, Los Angeles County is going to have the biggest population of LGBTQ members, followed by Southern California as a whole, not including LA, then the Bay Area at 22%, Southern Central Farm areas 10%, Central Valley 6%, North and Mountains 4%. But right here, I just brought up a SocioEconomic Indicators, and it showed the disparities between LGBTQ plus and non-LGBTQ plus, and I thought it was really interesting. So for unemployment, it's going to be 9% versus 7%. Uninsured, it's actually consistent at 11%. Food insecure, which I found the most honestly heartbreaking, was 20% to 14%, and having lower income or a lower income of 24,000 laid at 23% to 21%. And as I saw in another presentation, anywhere, I think it was said under $20,000 a year was considered poverty. So that's really sitting close near the poverty line. So strengths of this community, which I think are really unique and awesome, are some of the protective factors. So these are going to include supportive community, serving as a positive role model, living authentically, fostering social justice and activism, and enjoying freedom from heterosexual norms. So really just living your life as who you are and living your truth. LGBTQ support groups are going to be really important in offering a safe and confidential space that allows for connection and self-efficacy. Research backs that children raised by lesbian mothers often perform better academically and have fewer behavioral issues. I thought this was something really interesting because I feel a lot of people who may be against same-sex parenting may think that there may be adverse outcomes, but this shows that there's really the exact opposite, which I think is awesome. And then it's important to note that throughout the lifespan, LGBTQ individuals are able to maintain strong resilience through adversity. And what the research was found is that through their social groups, they're able to engage in coping skills that really encourage hope for the future for them, which I think which is like incredible. Then we have the Gay Straight Alliance and resources such as the Trevor Project that are going to promote wellness in the LGBT community. So, specific challenges that I highlighted, although there were a lot that I found, I think that these three really highlight the main struggles. So, coming out, aging, and dealing with harassment, discrimination, misconceptions, and prejudice. So, coming out is going to be a really hard thing for a lot of people. It's going to lead to fears of maybe rejection, anger, and grief. And it's going to be especially harder for youth who are dependent on family emotionally and financially. Because obviously, if they come out to their families and their families don't accept, they then rely on them for food, shelter, just the basic needs. And then if they come out, their parents then have, I guess, a choice to support them or to not support them. Then moving on to multiple identities. So it's going to be harder for ethnic minorities to come out due to the stigma around multiple minorities and having multiple identities. Aging, there's going to be a big fear of discrimination, usually from past maltreatment from healthcare providers. Also, there tends to be negative attitudes in elderly facilities about LGBTQ. And lastly, the harassment. So, harassment and discrimination can be found anywhere from mental health professionals to in society to in schools with teachers and in the presenting literatures, just basically about anything. So, mental health and clinical implications. Counselors need to assess their own bias towards heterosexuality and homosexuality. Ethnic minority LGBTQ may be dealing with rejection from other ethnic communities as well as marginalized with the LGBTQ community. And some individuals are going to have to deal with internalized homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. And it may help to focus on replacing these negative messages that society has ingrained in them with positive, affirming messages about their identity. Additionally, effective interventions may involve assisting to identify or correct cognitive distortion or coping skills to expand social supports and social behaviors. So, really, the mental health implications for this population is that LGBTQ youth are at higher risk for major depression, generalized anxiety, and substance abuse, while adults are at higher risk for substance and alcohol related problems. Gay men have higher rates for major depression, while lesbian women report having little to no difference in mental health symptoms compared to heterosexual women. So the two empirically based articles I found, one focused on empirical based practices and the other focused on the disparities that LGBTQ populations are facing in the COVID time period. So first, they looked at what empirically based interventions are going to be best suited for what they called sexual minority youth, which is really just LGBTQ youth, ages 13 through 17, who are experiencing negative mental health symptoms. So there is a bunch of different interventions that had positive outcomes, but Affirm and Assist were the ones that I found most practical. And then the other article that looked at COVID-19, we looked at how the pandemic affected the LGBTQ community. And to my surprise, something that I did not know was that the LGBTQ community holds a lot higher unemployment rate than heterosexuals. And I found that to be really, really eye opening. Because I've realized, and in the literature, it's stated that a lot of LGBTQ members are in the service industries. And if you're in the service industries, we know that COVID-19 has definitely affected those. So that is why they account for 40% of the 30 million people who have filed for unemployment during this time. They have less access to health care, 12% versus heterosexuals at 17%. And they're 22% more likely to live in poverty. So if we're living in poverty, we're not getting enough nutrition, we're not going to go see our doctor, and it's not going to be good for our overall well-being in the long term. Also, stay-at-home orders have forced LGBT youth to stay at home, and for some, this means being trapped in unwelcoming, invalidating, and often abusive households. So, realization moments and some points of reflection for me was heterosexual individuals taking for granted and settling down. This is a privilege that I really had never thought about, was just the fact that, yes, I am able to get married and find a partner and have children without having fear of being discriminated against or having trouble. So that was really interesting for me to reflect on. Also, microaggressions and counseling relationships, something that I would have not thought of necessarily was using heteronormative language. So instead of using things like boyfriend or girlfriend, using words such as partner, and then also not assuming clients are heterosexual, which is something that I know that I have found myself doing in the past. And lastly, the last thing I want to reflect about is an angry moment that I had. So the text stated that gay and lesbian parents are still at risk of being turned down by adoption agencies even after passing background checks. So this really points out a big, big disparity in our social services, and how I think that it's more of our ethical duty as counselors to go out into these different fields and educate and advocate, because that is just not right. And my very last points of reflection is I thought it was really interesting that in some of my research, I found that the egalitarianism frequently seen in lesbian relationships promotes resiliency in children and also provides a positive relationship model. So, again, going against the whole adoption, same-sex parents not being fit for adoption. Obviously, that is not the case because there's so much information that goes against that. Also, an aha moment, older LGBTQ individuals may have a tough time coming out again. So later in life, there may be different situations where they have to come out again. And in the counseling relationship, it can help the client build coping skills and social supports. And lastly, my last angry moment was finding out that some states do still have laws that ban students and teachers to being able to talk about their sexual orientation freely. And that really bummed me out. But hopefully we are moving in a better direction where this can be changed in the future. So thank you for watching my presentation. I know I went a little bit over. Thank you, and I enjoyed doing this.